is a story of Black LGBTQ history. It is often framed in violence and oppression, but there is also abundant joy and resilience. Yet why are these stories unknown or not told more often? This is AC Glenn. They spoke at the 1973 Denver Gay Revolt, Denver's so-called Stonewall moment, when 300 LGBTQ people shared their story and changed Colorado forever. AC was the only Black speaker that night. They wore women's clothing to protest anti-cross-dressing laws, just as their friends did in the front row. Yet AC was wise. They didn't wear anything expressly against the law, but showed how the laws were wrong to the Denver City Council. We use they pronouns because some identify AC as transgender later and some as gay before. Like so many Black gender nonconforming people who came before AC, sharing their story was a form of joy and resistance. Their truth was their power. Yet Black LGBTQ history is as old as every history on Earth. From the story of Neankunum and Khnum-Hotep 5,000 years ago in the Egyptian 5th dynasty, to the 16th century royal Nzinga in present-day Angola, who was known not as queen, but king to her people, or to the Mino of Dahomey in the 19th century, who were both female and warriors, which was in defiance of European gender binary. Queer Africans in all places had status, protection, and love. Black queer joy is global and ancient. In the heart of the cultural cores of that diverse and vast continent known as Africa, every place has names for third gender and queer people. They are called Bengala in the Congo, Akole in Uganda, Mashoga in Kenya, Ashtime among the Malay people of Ethiopia, among many others. They were third gender priests and priestesses in the 14th century of Angola and 19th century in Ghana. They influenced the fate of kingdoms, wars, and prayed over the dead. They are not past tense, nor are they gone. They are everywhere to this day. Even during the African diaspora and horrors of the Middle Passage, queer people survived and thrived. Women who had their hair cut to look like men led rebellions on slave ships. Mothers, sisters, and lovers helped care for each other in the Mati culture of Suriname, which continues to this day. Gender-diverse people thrived in religions like Voodoo and Santeria, represented by Iwa like Gidni Ibo. When we revisit the slave narratives of people like Aladua Equiano, we find references to love and intimacy between men, as well as attempts to erase that by white biographers in the 19th century. Queer joy thrived despite erasure. Even in the face of public persecution, Black trans women like Mary Sawali held their heads high and created community in cities like New York in 1839. Bravery manifested in the face of sexual and physical violence as Frances Thompson of Nashville spoke her truth, defended her friends, and became perhaps the first Black trans woman to testify before the American Congress. Joy was found in the House of Swan, where drag was invented in America in the 1880s by William Dorsey Swan near Washington, D.C. This connects to voguing culture today. Resiliency, bravery, and joy followed one another. In Colorado, some of the earliest accounts of Black LGBTQ history are suspicions of same-sex activity among the Buffalo Soldiers. These were men who were stationed in the San Luis Valley from 1865 to 1880. Often isolated from their families, they slept in closed, cold, and cramped quarters, and some talked about female impersonation. Their intimate activities became the subject of inquiry by military doctors. And yet questions remain. New evidence and stories come to light. Kathy Williams, the only known female Buffalo Soldier, has always been a point of pride for the Black community. One newspaper source claimed that she was actually born male and was accepted by her kin and family in Trinidad, Colorado. Yet there is so much more to learn about her and those like her, and many more unanswered questions. Yet, what if there are many more like her? In the 20th century, in Colorado, we know much more. Hattie McDaniel, the first person to win an Oscar for her work in Gone with the Wind, went to East High School and premiered her career in Denver at KOA Radio in the 1910s and had many women-loving women in her life. During World War II, Black trans women like Lucy Hicks Anderson told their story even in the face of prison for simply being who they were. Black World War II veterans like Lorraine Hurdle knew people in drag in Denver. Gay Black men cruised in homosocial spaces like the Glenarm YMCA. Some leaders, though, were closeted, like civil rights attorney Wendell Sayers, who would fight for gay rights even behind the scenes as the first black person to work in the Colorado Attorney General's office in the 1950s. Yet again, joy, connection, and resilience followed each other. In the 1950s and 60s, black women-loving women and transmasculine people thrived in different spaces and yet found challenges. Pauli Murray sought medical transition but became one of the foremost activists and legal scholars of the 20th century. Singer Jackie Shane grew in popularity even under pressure to dress as a man. She never gave up her true self as she exuded defiance and self-confidence. Ernestine Tiny Davis opened her own club in Chicago and toured through places like Denver in the 1950s. Others, like Billie Holiday, who was openly bisexual throughout her life, came through Denver, as did others like Billy Strayhorn, an openly gay band leader with Duke Ellington. Stormy de la Barriere, who was at Stonewall in 1969, came through Denver as a male impersonator in 1956 with the drag troupe The Jewel Box Revue. They found safety and acceptance in the arts and music of 5 Points. Art has long been a safe place for black queer people. In the 1970s, black queer people led the way for liberation in the streets like Marsha P. Johnson, or organized major turning points in American history like Bayard Rustin. In Denver, black female impersonators like Lady Diana and Stephanie McCall were famous for their shows and fostering queer culture. Queer black people, sometimes calling themselves street drags, a code word for black, trans, and sometimes doing sex work, were everywhere. When one of their own, Tracy Levy, was murdered at the hands of the Denver police, they helped to organize the first protest against that violence with the June 7th Committee and the Transsexual Gay Lesbian Defense Coalition in 1978, only 5 years after A.C. Glenn spoke their truth to Denver City Council. There were after-hours, secret, black gay bars in the 1960s in 5 Points, and a popular disco called Taste by black people for black people in the 1970s. Yet time and again people resisted, built community, and shared their stories. In the 1980s to the early 2000s, they created support networks and fought against the ignorance and laziness of a racist president in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, which has colonialist roots. HIV struck many peoples and continues to do so, but through support groups like Brothers Forever and an organization like It Takes a Village, a central space was created to support people. Interracial groups like Great Men of the Rockies, a part of black and white men together, increased awareness, while community protests successfully stopped gay bars like the 1942 from actively discriminating against black patrons. Black women-loving women found and built community for themselves and others. Black trans people could find support at the Gender Identity Center, yet like many black LGBTQ people, they still needed space created by black queer people for black queer people. In the 21st century, this generation leads the way for creating black LGBTQ culture in Colorado by sharing stories and creating space for black LGBTQ people. They are not simply storytellers, artists, leaders, community makers, and people like you watching this video. There is a long history yet to explore, story by story. These are but a few of the stories of black LGBTQ heritage. To find out more, please see the website, thewordsweteach.com, and the Mother Essay to Name My Story. The Words We Teach Art Contest takes LGBTQ history, gives it to students. They make art to help build a collection made by youth, for youth. In resilience, happy Pride.